Hey guys, Jedi Azuma here with the Movement University and our second installment of our question and answer session. This week our question comes from Lynn in Santa Barbara, and she just so happened to ask me about one of our favorite topics, which is what are some of the benefits and I guess pros and cons of barefoot walking and running. This is a big topic in the movement community nowadays because a lot of people are starting to explore moving barefoot. It was used to be just expected that you'd have to wear shoes for everything. I personally am a huge barefoot advocate. I run barefoot, I walk barefoot wherever is publicly appropriate, and this is what a barefoot mover's foot looks like. Kind of dirty and calloused, and I've spent the past 3-4 years building up the tolerance in my foot to be able to do that. So the first thing I always say to people when they ask me about barefoot walking and running is you got to make sure that you're training your feet to handle walking and running barefoot, because if you're just like most people in the modern world, we wear shoes everywhere. So our feet are used to having that additional layer of support, that cushion between the different surfaces we walk on. So you have to train your foot and prepare your foot. So one way you can do that is to spend small periods of time walking barefoot and getting your foot accustomed to not having that extra layer of support. Now, as far as pros and cons of barefoot walking and running, here's one of the things I always say to people when they say, well, is barefoot running good? Is it not so good for you? I always say, well, we weren't born with a pair of Nikes on our feet. So obviously, at least I believe, nature gives us exactly what we needed, what it was intended to do. So we ought to be able to move in the world without something protecting us from the ground. We just learn away from that by using shoes. And there's some really specific differences between the way people learn how to run in typical running shoes versus running barefoot. The biggest, most noticeable difference is a heel strike versus a forefoot strike. So when someone's running in a shoe, and running shoes, the way they've been designed with cushioning in the heel, they'll land with their heel first on the ground and then roll over onto the foot. Now, this is what we do with typical walking, but running is a little bit different. When you're barefoot running, your heel will never hit the ground. There would be way too much impact directly on your heel to run that way. You can try it yourself. Don't do it for too long because it'll be really uncomfortable. But you'll notice that when you're barefoot, you naturally want to be up on your toes a little bit more. You see kids do this all the time. They'll take off their shoes, they'll run around, and they're up on their toes. We call this a forefoot strike. And if you want to look more into this, there's something called the windlass mechanism, WINDLASS, which is the structural design of the foot that allows a springing motion to happen. We're biomechanically engineered this way to move. So I see the pros of barefoot running and barefoot walking as basically using our feet and our bodies the way they were supposed to be used. When it comes to the cons of doing it are really, in my opinion, only if you're not prepared to be a barefoot runner or walker. If you've walked in shoes your whole life, the entire body from your feet up to your shoulders is going to be oriented around that kind of movement that supports a walking gait where you're always heel to toe, heel to toe. And this is where we also see a lot of other problems develop when people's knees start to drop in. We begin to lose your arch because you don't need that. You're not using that mechanism to spring off of your foot anymore, so it just starts to fade away. So some of the practical cons, if you're not ready for barefoot running or walking, is bruising the bottoms of your feet, burning the bottoms of your feet on hot surfaces. I've found that out myself. Irritating or overusing some of the muscles in your feet and lower leg that you have to learn how to use if that's something you're not used to. Just like training new muscles. And if you truly are not prepared to start barefoot running, if you haven't gone through a program that helps you build up to that, you're bound to have some of these problems occur. I've seen plenty of people do it. When they introduced the Vibram 5-finger shoes and everyone got really excited about running in these duck shoes, there was a lot of injuries and even class action lawsuits taken against the company for advertising this in a way that made people think they could just put these on and magically start running in a pseudo barefoot fashion. But a lot of people started to have injuries happen because they weren't prepared to do that properly. So, in my opinion, there's a lot of upside to returning back to a more barefoot, a more natural way of engaging our foot with the floor, with the surface. But you got to be careful, be responsible, consult with a therapist, consult with a professional who's experienced in barefoot running and walking, and make sure you're just being responsible. If something doesn't feel good in your body, get some help, do some research, and take it slow, because there's a lot of years most of us have practicing walking around in shoes. So I hope that helps, Lynn. Great question, one of my favorite ones to talk about. Stay tuned, you guys. We'll be doing more installments of question and answer, but we need to hear from you. What do you want to know about movement, about the body, about injury prevention? Let us know. We're dying to help you guys out. For now, this is Jetty Zoom again with the Movement University. Forward to seeing you guys soon.